Thanks, Antonia. I have a pre-recorded presentation, so I will just share my screen and we'll be off. I'll take you from first read and beginning ideas to the creation of drawings and a pseudo-finished product. Just so you have an idea of the circumstances of the play, I'll begin with a short introduction of the plot. A brief preface, though. Theatrical design does not occur in a vacuum. All of the work that you'll see today is a product of collaboration between the entire design and creative team, and many of the renderings of costumes and scenery you'll see today were specifically created by other members of the design team. Anyone Can Whistle opened on Broadway in 1964 and closed after just 9 performances. It is the story of Mayoress Cora Hoover Hooper, seen left, and her 3 henchmen's attempt to save her small town from total economic demise. An original story with music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim and a book by Arthur Lawrence, the story follows those salvation efforts and an uprising against them. Her small town is only currently sustained by the cookie jar, a sanitarium for nonconformists. To save her town, the mayoress invents a miracle, the springing of water from a rock to attract tourists to her defunct town. This is all until Nurse Fayapple, an attendant at the cookie jar, and Hapgood, a mysterious outsider, realize that falsehood of Hooper's miracle. As Fayapple and Hapgood's love for each other develops, they work to expose the mayoress and bring a better life to the townspeople, free of the oppressive and corrupt mayoress's rule. In the midst of an intense satire on all things deserving, religion, class, art, etc., artifice works as a defense mechanism for nearly all involved. Through Fayapple's and Hapgood's evolving relationship and understanding of the circumstances in the town and of themselves, the play ends with an optimistic eye towards the future of this town and a warning about all other small towns. After I read the play for the first time and begin to understand the plot as I've just communicated to you, I meet with the director and the rest of the creative and design teams to discuss how we are going to present the show. It's in these meetings that the organizing idea is developed, something that guides the rest of the creative choices in the production. The organizing idea for this production is absolutely essential. Many say that Anyone Can Whistle is flawed. As something very near the beginning of the Sondheim canon, it's clear that his early ideas on composition are present throughout the piece. The production design's buzzword is pastiche, or collage. This idea came from Sondheim's compositional style, combining many musical styles together to form a cohesive whole. It's from this compositional style that the idea of the scenic design and its collage construction comes, a deconstruction and combination of construction materials from America's mid-century suburban and cookie-cutter homes. The play is so overtly satirical and over the top that it becomes difficult to solve at face value for the design team. From this difficulty, the organizing idea, central design thinking, and the backbone for the piece is born. In being satirical of the theater itself, the heightened artifice of the mayoress's Trumpian regime is exposed. The design becomes spectacularly grotesque when attempting to highlight the artifice and incredibly brutal in its opposition to it. After the initial meeting with the director and the creative team, the development of that central design thinking, I create a list of ideas, called an ideas list, usually while reading the play another time. Not all of these ideas end up in the show, obviously, but it does begin to form a checklist from which I create a technical drawing. I have a little bit of my own code, seen here on the left-hand side of the paper. Check marks indicate whether or not I've included them into the technical drawing. Next, the scenic designer will come back with ideas for a set. On the left, you see a top view of the set, an audience seating in a 3/4 thrust configuration, and a large 24-foot tall wall, sort of upstage, along with a large marquee and a screen center. You can see this pastiche nature of the scenic construction, representative of that compositional style I mentioned. After receiving hand-drafted technical drawings of the scenery, I'll create my own technical drawing. It's based out of a CAD program called Vectorworks. The ideas list turns into a light plot so that the lighting for the show can be installed by the electricians. Here, I've placed the light plot on top of the scenic model, so you have a rough idea of the combination of those elements and how they live together in space. The lights generally all live above the stage. This is a detailed view of the light plot in the center of the room. All of the different symbols and shapes you see here represent different kinds of equipment that can be hung, all of which have different qualities of light so that they can produce different effects. In addition to the overhead view, I'll produce several other plates of drawing, as they're called. This is a side view called a section cut through the center of the room to clarify vertical placement of lighting instruments. Here's a detailed view of the section just to provide a sense of scale. Now, during the COVID-19 crisis, the production was canceled, and it turned into a virtual read-through with presentations of the design as we read through the script. The assistant lighting designer and I created Photoshop renderings not meant to be photorealistic, but to suggest the lighting ideas. You'll see here the look for the top of the show. It's meant to evoke a dilapidated and run-down feeling, but still clearly indicate the potential the space has for discovery. I was considering broken down factories, broken windows with light streaming in through the windows to create this look. Textured warm light spills in from an angle. The marquee upstage is seemingly broken and is installed in a way where the lighting team can control its functionality, allowing us to suggest that this town is past its heyday. The next moment we visualized was from the musical number Me and My Town, where the mayoress explains her fabulous rule over her town and her current disposition. Using the inspiration of the circus that the mayoress feels like she's running, she takes on the role of ringleader, and her singing boys, the lions. The lighting leans into musical theater tropes, hard-edged spotlights around the mayoress, saturated pink, blue, and purple light, and now perfectly working marquee bulbs to remind the viewer of the 20th century musical theater. This idea is one the creative team felt would help to suggest the artificial nature of Hooper's rule, associating theatrical artifice with her own. Cora Hoover Hooper's big idea is to create an artificial miracle to draw people from surrounding towns to drum up tourism and business. To do this, her and her henchmen make water spurt from a rock. The rock in our play is a 12-foot tall structure with plexiglass panels scattered throughout, so that light from the inside may shoot out and represent water. It was important that the water in our play that Cora Hoover Hooper creates be clearly artificial and fake. You can see some of that water coming from the lighting installed the rock inside of the rock here. It's the blue indicated on the rock center. When some townspeople see the rock for the first time, they proclaim the rainbows presumably created by the water. Given this is likely the only chance in my career to create a rainbow chase and call it a good choice, I took my opportunity. It really leans into the grotesque and artificial atmosphere that we're trying to create around Hooper and creates a real heightened feeling and atmosphere to this entire musical number. Near the end of Act 1, Sondheim has his first experiment with long-form song scenes. Later seen in the first 20 minutes of Into the Woods, the song entitled Simple is a 15-minute long number in which the mayoress tries to distinguish between the townspeople who have come to see the miracle and the inhabitants of the cookie jar, the sanitarium, who just escaped. The number draws on the absurds of the 20th century, like Jean-Paul Sartre and Samuel Beckett, and the number concludes with a direct address from Hapgood. You are all mad, accusing the audience of the just demonstrated absurdity and madness of the number. The stage direction reads that the company sits in the audience during this moment, but in our production, the light that shines on them in this rendering would switch and blind the audience immediately after that moment where Hapgood says, "You are all mad." Our team's hope is that this usage of light is less clunky than seating actors in the audience and also more shocking. At the top of Act 2, the grotesque, garish, and artificial world of the mayoress becomes more distinct from the sincere pursuit of truth by Nurse Fay Apple. An exaggerated yellow backlight opens Act 2, but shows the growing separation from reality inside of the mayoress's head. My idea for this comes from sunlight, literally, but in an exaggerated and cartoonish fashion. Near the end of the play, the mayoress is working to round up the escaped patients from the sanitarium into a jail. As a result of budget, pragmatic, and pacing choices, the creative team elected to create the jail with light. These vertical beams have the ability to move around the stage so that the mayoress can move the jail and inhabitants around during a long dance number. Here, the artificial nature of her rule is so fake that the jail bars of her jail are nothing but light and absolutely cannot hold anyone in. Through this repeated and growing showcase of the mayoress's Trumpian regime that continues to grow disconnected from reality, the team hopes to rival our current political circumstances. By showing the audience this and by literally telling them, "You are all mad," we hope the audience will leave the theater considering what they could do to prevent such a scenario occurring in their own realities. That said, it's entirely possible that this design idea would not have worked. But without a realized production, we may never know. I leave this process still having questions about the achievement of these goals and this production's intent, but optimistic that it might just have worked. Thanks so much for your time, and I look forward to hearing your questions.